I love this. When people call me, there's some people, I had to change my number, but there are people who are drug addicts and alcoholics. And the common denominators are very successful, and they're still successful. And it's like M2, listen, I got this cocaine problem, but I'm still going to drink. And I said, oh, okay. And they're calling me, and they're just talking. They're ripping and running, talking. And I said, let me stop you for a second. I'm going to ask you a question. There's a right answer. There's one right answer. I said, why do you drink? Well, because my wife's on my back. I'm stressful at work. I said, stop. Wrong answer. Why do you do blow? Why do you do cocaine? Well, dude, man, I want to loosen up. And when I drink, I can drink more and I get out of the house. And I'm a recreational cocaine user. That's like half pregnant. You know what I mean? Right. I'm like, come on, man. Yeah. People who don't do cocaine will say I'm a recreational Pepsi drinker. Well, that could be a habit, but you know what I mean? Yeah. But so when they're doing this, and they keep going on, and I said, wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. And they get mad, and they go, dude, I don't know. Right answer.
This next guest had a successful life, but there were secrets. There were reasons why he was on the path of destruction. And the story he tells is fascinating and educating and eye-opening for a lot of people that have people like this within their families and may not notice some of the signs that lead one successful man down a path of destruction, alcoholism, and drug addiction. This man has a popular radio show and tells his story in order to save other people before it's too late, by allowing them to understand that there is a successful path to take. And the one he took landed him in prison, but ended up getting him back onto a successful path to where he is today. So I hope we can all learn. I certainly did. It was very enlightening. He's a good friend of mine. Please welcome Michael Molthan.
There's so much to tell in terms of your story, and I don't want to get into too much to where you feel like you're rehashing a lot of what's already out there. But one of the things I'm curious about you, knowing who you are now and knowing I happen to know a lot of the things you've been through, which we'll talk about, of course. But tell me a little bit about how somebody gets themselves into so much trouble in terms of your perspective from growing up. I mean, what kind of family life did you have?
Before we get into that, Tegan, thanks for letting me be on your platform. Yes, it's when we were driving over here, and I'm going to answer your question. Driving over here, my prayer and wish is that what we're doing here just touches one person. Just touches one person to give them hope. Amen. I was taught to just to share my story of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And so back to your original question, what was it like, as a kid growing up, and where'd this come from? And it did start at a very early age. And, I'm a recovering drug addict alcoholic, to cut right to the point. And today I realized that because I drank alcohol and I did drugs, not because I was dealt a bad deck or I was abused, sexually abused and all that. And that's all real stuff. But I drank alcohol and I did drugs for the effect. That's why I did it. And when I did drugs and alcohol, it made me feel like everybody around me looked. And as a result of the consequences of that, I continued to do drugs and alcohol because I wanted to feel good about the bad decisions and the consequences that were happening to me.
And those consequences were a result of the drugs and alcohol itself.
That's correct. And it was a choice. I mean, it definitely was a choice. But until I had my spiritual awakening, I was seeking visible things to fix my invisible problems. So back to a kid, when I was a very young kid, my grandfather was a cop, border patrol, a police officer, and he sexually abused me for years, and I share this a lot. We went fishing without a fishing pole. He used to take me out, and I was terrified of him. And it was kind of like, well, why didn't you tell anybody this? And I did this to protect my family, my brother, my mom, and my dad, because I didn't want anybody to think bad about them. Because I grew up in a well-to-do home, and behind closed doors, it was chaos. My father was very physically abusive to me, and we were never around. And it was just a lot of confusion growing up. So I masked it with humor and trying to get everybody to laugh and trying to be center of attention. But I was so alone. I was very alone. And so as growing up as a kid, my mom and dad would say, "You're just like your grandfather. You're going to be just like him. Your mannerisms, the way you use your hands, I mean, your fingers, your handwriting, everything is just like your grandfather."
And they had no idea.
They had no idea, and
Wow.
and so I was very confused. And so my solution to confusion was chaos. To create chaos. I was very smart, growing up. I was street smart. I was book smart, but I hated school. And I would literally, back in the time, I would just get up and just leave school and, just go home in fifth grade. And so I was a hustler at a very young age on the wrong side of the tracks, the wealthy side of the tracks, growing up in country clubs. And the men in the country clubs raised me. These guys at infidelity make a lot of money, real estate. The woman's to stay at home and be there for you, and you go rock and roll. And so that's all I knew. Those are the tools that were given to me. Never had a father figure in my life.
Other than those guys who,
Yeah.
and as a fifth grader, those are forming years in your life where you're looking to adults to find out how you need to plot yourself.
I didn't have that man in my life. And now keep in mind, and when I do these, this is not about bashing my parents. This is not about bashing my grandfather. This is not about getting revenge. This is not about making a statement of right and wrong. It's about true forgiveness. And that's the whole message here is forgiveness, because they did the best they could with the tools they had. These are the tools that they had, and they didn't make the choice to stop the pattern. I am today is making that choice and putting my foot down to stop this tradition that's gone on from generation to generation.
So that being said, with the circumstances that you grew up with, I think most people would understand why you would turn to drugs or alcohol and other things that are just confusion-based solutions for an immature mind.
Yeah. So
how does one then, I mean, again, without skipping through the whole story, because I don't mean to do so, but how does someone like you end up saying, I'm going to put my foot down? And we've had generation after generation, they'll have parents that smoke or, parents that do X, Y, Z, and you'll have two siblings and one follows in their footsteps because that was their influence. And the other one says, I'll never do it because that was my influence.
Right.
What kind of stimuli or what kind of circumstance do you think sets your situation apart to where you said, the cycle stops here with me and I'm gonna do something different?
It was complete honesty. I mean, we'll get into it in a little bit as far as, prison time and incarceration, going from the best well-known home builder in the country, high-end luxury homes, to 27 mugshots. But it was honesty. It was simply saying this: I don't know why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I mean, people say, the solution is to ask for help, and that's, by God, I don't. That's right. That is exactly right. But my personal experience is me getting honest and saying, I don't know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. God help me. Not church, not religion, God. I got a big time disease. I need a big time God.
Were you cornered into asking that question? Because was it in prison that you had to say, okay, I need to reflect and figure out what it is I'm doing and why? Or do you think you would have come to that epiphany at some point on the trajectory you were on without being in trouble?
I was in prison my whole life. My whole life I was in prison, and I put myself in prison. But it was when I was locked up for the last time that I realized that, God was all I needed because He's all I had. It was that dark.
Yeah.
And so it's still fresh in my mind because I've been filming a big documentary right now, and it's triggering, and there's things in my life happening as we speak today, and so it's triggering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling, I'm feeling it. I'm allowed to feel, my whole life. I don't cry. I cry when a butterfly gets hit in the windshield.
I wonder if it's because we're old. I guess the same.
You know
way.
what I mean? And so, but I'm allowed to do it, and I'm not ashamed of it. But it literally, I'll never forget that. And I was in a holding tank, and the state law is, you can't be in there more than 48 hours or it's inhumane. I was in there for 96 hours. They forgot about me. And I'll never forget being on this concrete floor, and it was freezing cold, and I was detoxing, and I was trying to go to sleep. And the guard just came in there, just threw a roll of toilet paper in there because we were out of toilet paper. And since I was the only one in there, I took that roll of toilet paper and I used it as a pillow. And I still remember it today. I was like so grateful, for that roll of toilet paper, and that's where it hit me. I said, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I don't know. And I didn't have the spiritual awakening then, but right there, I just go, instead of saying, why am I doing this? I said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm doing this. I need help. And I always said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm never doing this again. And when the gas of the world would hit me and I'd get out, I was drunk and high that night. I was one of those stories. I used to hear that, man. I did this and did that. And then I got drunk and high that night. I'm like, dude, I'm not like you yet. And so I hope that answers your question. I mean,
it does. No, it does. And I'm wondering too, if you feel like, in some of my experience with people that are close to me too, it becomes frustrating because you tend to not be able to help people that aren't prepared to be helped. Mm-hmm. Is that something you would agree with?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was just talking about that this morning to a good friend of mine on the phone, and I get thousands of messages throughout our social media platforms, and it's moms and dads, husbands and wives saying, hey, can you help my loved one? And I tell them no. And the reason why is because they have to call me. They have to call me. When they reach out, which is very few and beyond, I help them. And the only way that I help them is just share my story. And when I share my story with them, especially when I say I drank and I did drugs because I wanted to feel like everybody around me looked, and they love that there's a power greater than ourselves, that they start doing this, and that's when the connection happens. When they start doing this, I don't have them, God's got them. Yeah. And so right then, as I just keep telling my story, solutions, I don't do drunkalogs today. What it was like, it's very small. Y'all know what it was like. I drank alcohol and I did drugs. I fell down, said I was never going to do it again. I did it again. That's my story. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what it was like. Now, if you want to get into Forrest Gump stories and all this stuff, I got them. Yeah, I got them. Yeah. So, I mean, I've got stories that'll blow you away, and now I can look back at them and laugh, Right. But I also have stories from the past where I really hurt people. And I really hurt people. And what's scary about it is I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to do that. So we can get into that.
Maybe just take us from the point in which you had started getting into trouble. You're knocking off from school, and you're drinking and doing drugs. How did that start the life trajectory that took you into the doldrums of closed bars?
Yeah, right. Right. I'll never forget going to a closed bar one time with a good friend of mine. I walk up there and I'm drunk, and I said, and I'm not sponsoring anybody, but I go up there and I said, I need a Corona. And they said, the bar's closed. And I said, no, I need a Corona. And they said, well, the bar is closed. And I said, all right, give me a Coors Light. They're like going, I don't think you're listening to us. The bar is closed. Yeah. But I knew I had a problem with alcohol and drugs after my first drink. I mean, that's not true. I mean, I had my first drink at 10 years old, but I remember the very first time that I experienced euphoria. I mean, I remember that. I remember where I was at. It was in Plano. I was in a car. I remember I was in the back seat. We were drinking vodka, and I was like going, I want to feel like this the rest of my life, and I tried. And only an alcoholic, Tegan, remembers their first drink and their last. I don't remember my first bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Okay.
Don't even remember my last bowl. It wasn't long ago because I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but I don't remember my first bowl of it. Mm-hmm. I don't remember my first quarter pounder of cheese, and I love them, but I remember that first drink. And why is that? It's because it changed the way I felt. It sent me into what I thought was a spiritual realm, but it wasn't. It was euphoria. Mm-hmm. And I continued to chase that first drink. I continued to chase that back seat of that car. And so that was it. I mean, as far as when I started getting in trouble, I haven't told this in a long time. We got our driver's license when we were 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember being upset because the law just changed from 18 to 21. And to drinking age in Texas. Yep. And I remember, and I didn't hit puberty until I was a senior in high school. So I looked like a baby. I mean, literally, I got pulled over one time driving because they didn't think I was old enough to drive. Okay. But the very first day of my license, I get my license and we go straight to the liquor store. And there was a guy that was with me that was already shaving, and he had a fake ID. And we went in there and we loaded up my Blazer with, that's when California coolers were big, right? Yes. And so we loaded up my Blazer laser with California coolers, and the place is being marked. They're watching, and I mean, I went back up 3 feet, and they pulled me over, and
Really?
and I didn't get arrested, but I got a MIP, minor in possession.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, the ink is still wet on my driver's license, and I got to go home and tell my parents this. And I lied. I mean, I lied, and it wasn't mine, and all that stuff, and they knew better, and I got in a lot of trouble. I stayed in trouble, and so to get out of trouble, I would lie.
And of course, I think a lot of kids do that, but you think it was exacerbated by the fact that you were drawn to going right back into the things that caused the trouble in the first place.
Chaos.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I knew was chaos. And
so what led up to the first time you were actually arrested? You got an MIP. I mean, that's also kind of the beginning of the end for you too. That's another staple moment, right?
Yeah. The first arrest, there was a time, and I'll get to that, and when I got off the pro golf tour, I was a caddy on the pro golf tour. I told you, you're talking to Forrest Gump. So I was a caddy on the pro golf tour for 5 years for one of the best known golfers in the world at the time. And so I was jet setting around. I was a really good golfer growing up.
Wow.
And went straight from the country club straight to the pro golf tour to caddy for this guy, because I didn't want to go college. I didn't want to play team golf. And when I share my story, I always tell people, what's so crazy? I never drank or did drugs in college. And they're just shocked, and they're like blown away. And I said, the reason why is because I didn't go to college. I went straight from high school, to the pro golf tour. And that was rock and roll. I mean, it was rock and roll.
Yeah.
As a caddy out there. Yeah. I made a lot of money. I mean, I was 21 years old. I was a bookie on the tour. I was printing money, and, I was like, no one can stop me. And then when that got over with, I got a girl pregnant when I was out there, and I was doing the next right thing and wanted to be there for her and all this. And I adopted her daughter that was there. And this is a family I did wrong. And I left them. I abandoned them and went back on the tour because that's what I was taught. That's what I saw guys do in the country club.
Right.
They all had 3 and 4 wives and, baby mamas, or what you want to call them. And
that was the way.
Yeah. And that was normal to me. And without realizing how I was destroying not only their lives, but those kids' life. Because I didn't know any better. I didn't have a dad. He was always working and gone.
And you were still a kid too, really.
Oh my God.
I was 21 years old.
21 years old. And I mean, it's just, and I'd come in my own. I'd hit puberty. I was really maturing, and I was told I was a good looking guy and a fun guy. And I was the life of the party, but I never let anybody close, And so as this is going on, I finally got off the pro golf tour, and I chased my best friend who I've known since kindergarten. We shared lockers together, and we got married. And that's when I got into real estate, because I grew up with real estate guys. And I got into real estate and home building, and I'm very creative, and I really took it off and was very successful. But I was still drinking, and the drug use went down. So I just was going to drink and hanging out at the country clubs. And the next thing I know, in 2002, my wife called me out, and she says, listen, you need help. Because, I went to watch Monday Night Football with the guys, and she found me in a hotel on Friday, and she's mad, and I'm calling her a control freak, right? I mean, this is not adding up.
Yeah, but most people don't even have that conversation.
Yeah,
you're done.
Yeah, they're scraping me off the ceiling with people of the opposite sex, and it's not okay. It's not okay, and it's like, who you gonna? I'm the man. Who you gonna tell me what to do? You're a control freak, and that's how sick I got. And, in 2002, I was called to the carpet. I was really intoxicated, and I had to go to detox. And she said, you're not coming home. Well, that triggered abandonment. I've been abandoned my whole life. And I don't mean that as poor me, but it's a part of my story. And I share that to help people, especially men. I relate to men. I'm a man. Yeah.
And recognizing it is almost really the key.
That's the victory.
If you identify that you're triggering the abandonment and responding to it, then that's half the battle.
That's right. And I just had this conversation the other night with a friend, and that's what I do today now is I'm honest about it. I say, you say this one thing and your actions this way, my brain will go, you're leaving me. I mean, it'll go from there to there in a second going, get your stuff and get out. And that scares me because I've just recently gone through that lately. And so it's and my brain's stopping there because God allows this to happen. And we'll get to that, And so I went to detox and got out, and she goes, you're not getting out until you go to treatment. Well, okay, I get out, but I get on the phone and I call Betty Ford. And the reason why I say Betty Ford and not just rehab is because I want everybody to know that I went to Betty Ford because that's where important people like me go, right? Because I really think I'm that important.
That's the one everyone's heard of.
Yeah.
Sure,
So I said, I'm a rock star. I'm this big time home builder and I got a big name on it. And I realized that people don't wake up in the morning and think about me, right? And so I go to treatment. It was great. I really did learn a lot. It was a 28-day program. I was there for 4 months. And so they wouldn't let me go. I tried to break out. I'd get out. I'd go to the airport, and they would get my wife on the payphone. There was no cell phones then, on the payphone, and say, "Listen, just keep talking to them. We're on our way." And here come the redcoats, and they would take me back. And I learned a lot there. The seed was planted. But in 2002, when I got back, I just dove into work, not a program. There was no spiritual awakening, but I just shifted the view to other visible things, and they were my boys. They were my boys, my 2 boys, and I was determined to be the dad that I never had. And Tegan, I did that a lot to bury the pain and guilt for the kids that I'd abandoned. There was not a day that would go by where I had this guilt and shame. And that's a tough one. Guilt and shame at the same time. You got the devil, and then you have God giving the opportunity to repent. That's a cocktail right there.
Yeah.
So I started hiding drinking again. And, I'm a social drinker for about 8 minutes. I'll drink about 4 sips and, then I'm selling everything. Yeah. And it just got worse and worse. And then in 2009, my wife had a massive brain hemorrhage, and my life has never been the same since January 4th, 2009. Wow. And that's where, my in-laws and, I got to learn how to deliver this, but I was being betrayed. I was really being betrayed. And it was easy to betray me because I was so sick. I was so messy. I had this conversation today with a friend, is that we don't engage in that based on emotions, because then we look like the sick ones. Does that make sense? As far as a communication, I don't want to think on my feet. And the situation, I was thinking on my feet and reacting. And it was real easy for me to look like the sick person when I was being betrayed and abandoned, because it was a result of fear.
Right.
And so when that happened,
something you haven't learned how to cope with at that
that's
point.
right. I mean, I had no coping skills with that. Yeah. And so I made that look real messy, and I was done wrong. There's no doubt that I was done wrong. And then I started doing people wrong, out of revenge and resentments. And what was scary is I wasn't even plotting it.
You were just angry at that point.
Oh my God, I was angry. And
so we're all the way up to 2009. Then how do you end up getting yourself?
So in 2009, I hadn't had a drink in a while, but I was a dry drunk. And what that means is just go drink. I was just miserable to be around, and all I did was work. And one day I went into a gas station and filled my truck up. And this is how scary this disease is that I go in there, my card's not working in the slide thing because it was beaten down. So I went in there to pay for my gas inside, and I walk out with an 18-pack of Coors Light and 2 packs of cigarettes. I hadn't smoked in 5-6 years. And, I said, I'm just going to have one. And that one right there led to my first arrest, which was, I was at an establishment and left that place intoxicated with a large amount of cocaine. Now, a drug addict never says, I left with a little, we always have things in large, it's like I left with they don't leave like I left with a key bump, that's not a real drug addict. A real drug addict says I left with a large amount of cocaine. And I got pulled over, swerving and speeding, and I got pulled over, and that's when I got my first arrest, my very first mugshot. And man, the people that betrayed me and I was looking messy, God, they dogpiled that. And even the community, here's this home builder, and they use it against me. That mugshot changed my life. Wow. And so,
well, and you're in social circles that are a little different too.
Yeah, the air's real thin. Yeah, it was up there where everybody appears to be, perfect, and that's not a soft slug. It's every community, but it's but I was being thrown out there, and little did I know how God was going to use that. But I got that mugshot, Tegan, and it really affected me. And when I got in there and going through booking and just seeing this lifestyle that is just so bizarre. I mean, so bizarre at Lou Sterrett. And I went to go to the bathroom, had to raise my hand, and they said, I don't raise my hand to anybody, and they said, yeah, you can go to the bathroom. And these gangsters and just people, it's their way of life and the way they talk. And it was just, it was just baffling to me. And I went in there and I said, I've become that guy and said I would never be, ever be. And I said, I'm never doing this again. And I meant it. I meant it with every ounce of blood in my body. And I didn't realize I was being charged with a second-degree felony. And, when I heard the F word for my first mugshot, I thought I was going to prison for life. That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
And that's where I started learning the justice system. We can cut you a deal. This is your first deal. We can get you on probation.
You're in Texas. You're going to get a deal.
I don't understand all of this stuff, because all I can think about is prison.
Yeah.
So I make bond. It's the only time I got bond. And my judge at the time was Judge Tammy Kemp, the Amber Geiger trial.
Yeah.
And so I'll drop judges' names throughout this interviews because now they're my best friends. That's a harsh word. Very close friends. I have all their cell phone numbers. I mean, and we'll get into that.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. I got 10 of them.
That shows a lot of care on their part. And I think a lot of people miss that too.
Yeah. It's a testimony to the system. And we'll get into that because the system does work. I know that's very rare to hear, but it does work. And so I get that first mugshot and then I get out, and the person that picks me up is the guy that I had the biggest resentment towards is my dad. Now, he did bail me out, but right when I got the car, that energy, I felt it. And so I felt a little uneasy. So I need to knock the edge off because now I need to taper off is what my brain's telling me. I got drunk and high that night. And I spent 3 weeks teaching myself code on how to get rid of my mugshot. Little did I know that every time I clicked on my mugshot, it was going further to the front of Google.
Right. That organic reach.
Right. So I'm the one that's stimulating it. So more people are hitting it, and my mugshot's everywhere.
Yeah.
Today, it's my greatest marketing tool. I mean, the thing that I was so ashamed of, all 27 of them. If I want to create engagement on social media, if I see the algorithms off, I just post a mugshot. It just blows up. And it's kind of cool that it takes something so dark and now it's light for me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So how did you end up going back in?
Well, I had to appear for court, for this felony, and I never showed.
Which is why you never got another bond.
That's why I never got another bond. You get it.
Yes.
And so when they caught me, that's how I got the nickname Rabbit. That was my prison name, Rabbit. And because I was a runner. And then also when I was locked up and I got let out, I would go in the day room because I was just pacing because I was just I couldn't shut my brain off. Yeah. And I had no dope. So it was just me and the walls. But I get out and I run and I go down to Central Texas and I go down there and I hang out, and it was cool because I could walk into a bar and no one knew I was an alcoholic. So I could appear to be just a normal drinker. Right. Sure. And that lasted a week. A week, and then I'm like looking for the dope man.
Yeah.
And I was working for a contracting company, and then they started researching me, and they're like going, dude, we just hired Michael Jordan. I mean, what is going on here? And so I was down there and just ripping and running, and I got pulled over and got DWI, and I got arrested, and they came and got me. I would serve a little time, stints in time in county jail. And when I would get out, I was on probation. I'd never show up. I was always pissing dirty, and I'd get locked back up and do more time.
Cooperated.
Yeah. So out of 6 years, I did 4 years, and I did penitentiary time. I went down and, I've been to Henderson and Safe P and Hutchins and Wilmer, and I got the T-shirt. I got the deal. I got the ink, and
you've pissed off judges along the way, which is why you end up getting that time.
What's interesting is I didn't piss. I confused them because I didn't fit that mold. It was like it would just confuse them because I was actually doing time for stuff I didn't do. They were like going, this guy's confusing. So after Judge Kemp, that's when I got into Judge Jennifer Bennett's court. That's where that's when she became my professional photographer. I tell everybody, that's when she started taking my pictures for mugshots. And no matter where I got caught, down 35, these magistrate judges were like going, I don't know what you've done to this judge, but normal people get a bond over this. She goes, she's coming to get you. I said, oh, I know. Yeah. She if I was on the moon, she's going to come get me.
Yeah.
And thank God she did. And
and they're some buddies. And like I said, don't break a promise to them at least. I mean, you just don't mess with judges. No. Somehow that just comes back to haunt you. And
that's the biggest form of disrespect besides your wife, that's out there because, they don't play.
So how did you end up getting clean? Because at this point, you said you're in and out, you're doing years, you hit the big house and everything else. So how do you end up?
Well, I jumped forward a lot because the darkest day of my life became the lightest day of my life. On May 29th, 2017, I was at a person's house and the police were called, and I knew I was dirty. I was real dirty, and they said, "You're going to jail." And I knew that it was over. I knew Judge Bennett she was going to send me down. Mm-hmm. And Tegan, I never put hands on anybody. I never had ag assaults. I never, it was all dope. I had one, what was it? It was, I stole money. I was doing a construction deal, and I paid myself instead of the contractor. So they forced that, and I paid it all off. It's all paid off. And so I had that, which was a felony.
Was that for dope, or what?
Oh yeah. At the end of the day,
that's out of your character in general at that point, right?
Because I pay my bills. So it was. I forgot what the word is. Restitution. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. I had to pay back restitution, and I did it. So with that said, on May 29th, 2017, I was arrested, and that's when I received my 27th mugshot. And I get in the car, and just something happened where I just knew it was game over. No spiritual awakening. I just knew it was over. I knew that prison was going to be my life. That's what I was going to do. And I had holes, and I had warrants in so many counties. It was just going to be a mess.
Just made a mental concession at that point. Done.
Yeah. I said, I'm just going to have to live like these guys. And every time I got sent to Lew Sterrett, which is one of the most rock and roll jails in the country. There's a tower called the North Tower, and the 4th floor of the North Tower is where your murderers are. That's the ag assault tanks. Mm-hmm. And Judge Bennett still doesn't know why to this day, but that's where I would go. That's where they would send me. And so, I would get assigned to a tank, and I went to 2D, and that's 4th floor, North Tower, 2D, rock and roll. Mm-hmm. It's rock and roll. And I walk in there, and here I am, a white guy that's proper. So, they think I'm either, gay or a cop, and so I gotta stay quiet,
Neither of which are very good in that circumstance.
In that circumstance, it's not real good. And they assume I'm a murderer. They assume that I'm an aggravated assault guy. And so it didn't faze me, because I wish they would have killed me. And so, that's when the start of the awakening started. And it was the reason why, Tegan, because I said, I don't know. That was the point where I was locked up, and I said, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's what happened then.
That's interesting. So when you say, and I know it was kind of tossed out a little flippantly when you say you didn't commit assaults and all that kind of stuff to justify putting on that floor. What are your thoughts on the people that are trying to revise a lot of the laws, the dope laws, even the ones that are going to the extreme as to not actually prosecute a lot of people and try to redevelop a rehabilitative kind of a system as opposed to putting them in jail? What are your thoughts on that in general, based on your experience?
Good question. Boy, it's a tough one for the judges, because the people who are indicted, the prisoners, play a huge role in that too, because they'll spin that and say that they are drug addicts and alcoholics, so they can try to get the lighter sentence. They're not being honest. And so I feel for the judges, because they're trying to give people help that really don't want it.
Right.
And so it's a very, it all boils down to, and Judge Bennett and I talked about this, and I share this. I speak to her court, and I'll be there next week. Is that if you're willing, I always say I was willing to do whatever it took to get drunk, to get sober. Okay, well, I was willing to do whatever it took to get drunk and sober, and I spun it, and I flipped it, and I said, now I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get sober. And Judge Bennett says, I appreciate your willingness, but we're not going to do it your way. We're going to do it my way. All right. And what that is that all we have to do to get sober is to change one thing, and that's everything. Man, that's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful that I made that choice to do that. And it was painful, because when I did that, something else happened. Because left to my own devices, everybody in this room is going to the penitentiary, right? Left to my own devices, it doesn't turn out well. And I struggle with that daily. I try to take charge, and, I try to play God, and He'll let me. God will let me do it. So that's what happened. Or no, that's not what happened. That's the answer to your question about the justice system.
So is there a better solution? I know you said the system works.
For me, it did.
Right. But you also probably recognize that for many it doesn't work, and for reasons that
I do. I have a voice about this, and I've talked to the judges about this, and it gets into church and state. And I always tell them, I'm not talking about church and state. I'm talking about God. I'm talking about God and state. There's a big difference. Mm-hmm. And, recovery is all about, based on my experience and the people that I see who get clean, not just from drugs and alcohol, anything, trauma, abuse, is there's a spiritual awakening. There's something out there bigger than them that goes, aha. And all the treatment centers that by the state of Texas are cognitive behavior. They focus on cognitive behavior, and they're trying to help these men and women do the next right thing and play the tape forward, give them some tools to do. But there's no tools against resentment. There's no tools on how to process fear, because resentment's the number one offender. That's what's killing our world today. It's not drugs and alcohol. It's resentments.
Of what?
Anything. Resentments can occur from expectations. Like I have expectations of you. I'm setting myself up for a resentment. And resentment is what kills us. And I see it in people because I see it because I do it. And that's not being taught in these prisons of recovery. 12-step program has helped a lot of people. When they get released and they get into their court and they're on halfway houses and they're in probation courts, then they're court ordered to go to 12-step recovery meetings.
But you're not able to do that in a prison.
No. So it's all brand new. So they go from cognitive behavior to 12-step recovery programs, and 12-step recovery teaches you cognitive behavior. It teaches you how to trust God, a God of your understanding, clean house, and then help others. Yeah. And the clean house process is where I get to look at my character defects and they become my assets.
And to acknowledge that you don't actually have the control.
Right. That's step 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, which is an oxymoron when you're talking about cognitive behavior.
Right.
And even if you removed deity from that, it seems like almost the most important step, because you're trying to force feed somebody to change their behavior that doesn't acknowledge that they can't control their behavior. And it's like not addressing the elephant in the room. Right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. These guys, I can only speak for guys. And I mean, these guys because I did it, these guys who hit rock bottom and they go through this cognitive behavior and they're released, we're so focused on making the comeback. I'm gonna show you, Tegan, that I'm back. I'm back, and I'm gonna go kill the world, and I've got my hustle already, or I got my plan ready.
And you mean it.
And the plan's good.
Yeah.
But guess what's driving me? The same character defects that got me into prison, right? So I'm using these character defects. It gets me to rock bottom. Then I use these character defects to get me out. And then a resentment occurs in the world, and I go right back to the bottom because I have no process on to do it. Because when I get out, the Rocky music's playing. And the resentment is what's fueling me to get even with you, not hurt you or anything like that. Right. But I'm gonna show you how good I am.
Prove me wrong.
I'm gonna show you, and when I now have expectations, and when someone cancels a contract on me and it doesn't pull through based on my expectations, I don't get paid. Someone stiffs me. Guess what? I don't have any tools how to process resentments. Yeah, and this answer to is, what role do I play in it? If I have a resentment, it's because I play a role in it. And the role I played in is because I engaged in the contract with the guy, knowing that he's crooked.
Yeah. And that's interesting too. I think there's a lot to be said about that, which is probably a different topic.
Yeah.
But, I've been
we can do a whole show on resentments.
Yeah. And you'll get screwed over.
Yeah.
People are people, and it's just going to happen. And I've been in those situations too, where I've just dumbfounded at how much I can give one person and they'll turn around and screw you. But
it's expectations.
Once I learned how to figure out what percentage of that I was culpable for, maybe I didn't pay enough attention to them, and I thought I was doing well by them, but I needed to spend more time for them to really buy into the fact that I cared, or maybe I didn't read the last page. It could be something that simple, right, on the contract. But if you own part of that responsibility, it changes your attitude about it, because it gives you something else to focus on doing better, right, the next time.
Right. I mean, there's a word called acceptance, and acceptance doesn't mean approval, but true acceptance has no resentments.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense. And you know who told me that was a schizophrenic in prison.
Really?
Yeah, he came up to me and goes, "Hey, Rabbit, you talk about acceptance all the time." And I used to say, "I'm so confused. How do I know if I'm doing it right?" And he came up to me and he says, "Hey, Rabbit, true acceptance has no resentments." And I'm like, wow. God used a schizophrenic, to give me an awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you think there's a way to implement things like that, like a 12-step in there, or do you think it's all going to be a political firewall?
And, what's neat about it, and I need to be really, really clear about this. I'm not saying there's no 12 steps behind the walls, because there are a lot of men who take meetings behind the walls. The system lets that happen.
Okay.
They do let that happen, and they take it behind the walls. And I cannot forget to say that, okay? That is happening. But on a daily basis, my wish is that the curriculum in Safe P and Wilmer or any, and for people who are listening around the world, that is a state. That's what it's about.
State-funded program.
Yeah, that is under the TDC or the state.
Mm-hmm.
That is it's for drug rehabilitation, okay? But they're on cognitive.
Right.
They don't get in, but I would love to see the curriculum be all 12-step, because when they get released, once again, they're court ordered to go to 12-step recovery.
Yeah.
So it's like they're starting over.
And half the time they've been court ordered to do Safe P and all that stuff anyway.
9 months.
Right.
9 months of doing this, and they're doing hard time.
And I saw a lot of those guys that were slinging stuff.
Yeah.
That would leverage that as an alternative to going
That's what I was
to
talking
prison.
about earlier. That's right. They cut a deal. Hey, I'm a drug addict, alcoholic. They probably were, but they would do that to get less time.
Yeah.
Especially for non-ags.
Do you think that's okay? Do you think if someone were forcibly put in a program that was effective like that still wasn't ready to accept it, do you think they stand a chance?
Yes.
To actually flip?
Yes, because the group's in solution. So you put a newcomer in that group and a bunch of guys that have been there 6-7 months, they'll eat them up. You're going to come in here, you're going to be honest, because they'll see right through it. Mm-hmm. And then these guys, the reason why that's a great question. The reason why they got a better chance is because they hear people telling their story, and this happens.
Yeah.
Right? And then they get this awakening. You put them in a group that everybody's in the problem, they're going to use again.
Sure.
If the whole group's in the problem, not in the solution, everybody's sick.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So not a lot, you wouldn't change a lot in terms of at least drug abuse and stuff like that in terms of the legal system. You think if they could implement that as a mandatory process, it might actually really.
I do. And it's a movement that I know it's a hard sled to push uphill. I give it to God, and I just got my story. And the neat thing about it is our platform, M2 The Rock, is now on every tablet in the prisons across the country. So, which is new to me. I didn't know you can get a tablet. I didn't have tablets. I didn't have soups. You know what I mean?
You were allowed to have phones or anything.
Nothing, and I didn't even have money on my books. There's guys that had money on their books that I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But now they have tablets. And M2 The Rock is the only recovery-based show on that. And I get emails from prison from people. So they have a chance that they're allowing that on there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. That's really cool. So, so I get this way from the outside to get in to do that, and they're letting that happen, which is cool.
So of that show, why don't you tell us a little bit about that show, and then maybe some of the other projects that you're doing, because obviously we have a lot in common in terms of trying to reach out and leverage the experiences that we've had to try to bring people together and give them a better understanding of people, and hopefully find recovery or whatever the circumstance happens to be. So tell me a little bit about.
Well, before I got to toot your own horn, because you were a guest on my show, and that's how we met. Yeah. And in fact, we're, for the shelf life of this, today's April 4th, 2022, and we're going to replay your show tonight of our interview, and you got an incrable story. That's why I'm here.
I probably look so much younger there too. That's going to be really bad.
Yeah, he did. It was a year ago.
Is that all?
Something like that. Yeah. But anyways, M2 The Rock it's all God. I didn't get out of prison. I mean, I got miraculously released. I mean, I got released and walked 300 miles to turn myself in. And that's a whole other, part of my story. And so, I was in Central Texas. I was on chain, which means you're on the bus going to another prison.
Yeah.
But when I got out, they called me M2 because of Michael Molthan, MM. So they called me M2. And then I called it M2 the Rock because I realized that the rock at the bottom in all these times was the same rock. I mean, I hit my head on this rock. It's the exact same rock. And I finally realized that the rock at the bottom was God, because it was just me and the rock. And I stayed at the bottom. And that's very hard to hear. People don't understand. I stayed at rock bottom, and I let healthy men pull me out. I let them pull me out because I don't have the tools to get out of the bottom. I know how to get there, but I don't know how to get out. And so I let healthy men pull me out. And a lot of these men were prisoners, that were healthy, and they helped me by asking me to help them. And that's when, the famous Sally, Uwe, asked me to read to him. I simply just read to him, and it got me out of self. And that's when I had my spiritual awakening. And so it was amazing, because for the first time I was in the now, and I was helping someone else expecting nothing in return.
Isn't that the key to life, though? I mean, I can't tell you how many people I share that with. Is like, man, the big trick of life is that we spend all these first years trying to figure out how to succeed as an individual and become independent and everything else. And then you reach an age where you realize everything is about giving back. Like everything is seeing outside of yourself and your relationships and your kids and your communities and your issues, the things that you're tackling. You're leveraging your own story and being brutally honest about things to share with other people. I love the fact that is what actually brought you out of your own brain, try to figure out what can fix me, instead of saying, wow, you're allowing me an opportunity to help you, and then realize what kind of rewarding experience that is. I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's like, Christ says, because we forget everything, I do. And he says, if you can just get two things out of this simple book for complicated people like you, M2, he says, just remember this: serve me and love everyone. And it sounds real simple, and I work on it every day. Is I've always been a good person, and the guys I did time with that killed people and meant to kill them, I've seen them where I trusted them more than I trusted people in the world, because they've had this change, and they know the role that they played in it. The sweetest, biggest gangsters that just loved me like a little rabbit. I was tank boss. I became tank boss in this freaking gangster tank, and they loved me. In fact, when I left, they started crying. You know what I mean? The rabbit, no, it went from rock and roll to just turn. I mean, I had guys being killed right next to me. I mean, the guy got his neck snapped. It sounded like a dove. I still struggle with it to this day.
Wow.
And over nothing. Over absolutely nothing.
Was it just a fight that broke out?
No, they baited him like coyotes. They got him into my cell, and it's because of one thing that he said, and bam, gone.
Wow.
And so, but anyways, the show, it started, M2 the Rock, and when I got miraculously released, Brian Glenn, a local favorite, now he's traveling with Trump, and just a good dude, and Kim Francis, they were like, where'd Michael Molthan go? This big time home builder. They see my brother blowing up, and like, where did he go? And so I was at Salvation Army when I got released, and they happened to call, and they called my dad because he's Mike Molthan. And when I went to check on him, out of all the places I wanted to sleep was his house, but he let me sleep on the sofa, and he says, dude, this guy keeps calling my phone. So I called him, and they said, hey man, we want to do an interview and all this stuff. Where you been? Now, I got released on Friday. I went to court on Monday, and that's when Judge Bennett miraculously set me free, because she says, I've heard what you're doing. I see you. I feel you. Something's different, and I'm not going to get in the way. And she pardoned me. She set me free. I went from there to the Salvation Army. And when I was there, that's when my dad said, someone keeps calling. So I called and did an interview. All right. And I'm out on Friday.
Over the phone?
Yeah, out on Friday, in court Monday. I'm on an interview Wednesday with Brian Glenn and Kim Francis, all right? And they said, what's been going on? I'm like, where'd you go? And I tell them this story I just told you. And they go, good God, this makes sense. What year was this? I said, this was Friday. I said, this just happened Friday. And then iHeart saw it, local media got it, and they jumped on it. And here I am today going on our 5th year. And God's given me a life that I don't deserve and I don't want. What we're doing here, this is never what I designed myself to be. And every time I try to quit it, I just tried to quit it just recently, and God put, two people in my life that believe in me, and, special shout out to Kim Harmon Gatlin and Lee McGuire. I mean, I was in the ditch, I was in the ditch again, and they just pulled me up and just loved me. And they said, "You're the real deal. You really help a lot of people, and we're going to support you and get you out there."
That's awesome.
And, and then you call, and I wasn't going to miss this for the world, because right now, Tegan, I haven't thought once about the future. I haven't thought once about the past. I'm in this orange chair right here, right now, talking to you, and it's the safest place in the world is the now. That's where God's at.
Yeah.
This disease, non-alcoholism, drug addiction, the enemy wants me to go into the future in my head alone. He's got me. Okay. That's anxiety, paranoia, worry, all these things. When I'm feeling that, I'm telling God he doesn't know what he's doing. So I want to shift the view. All right. Mm-hmm. So I go to the past. And when I go to the past, I feel depressed, angry, resentful. I don't like that. So I do this game back and forth. Well, I'm all over, not in the now. So how do I get in the now? I read the ooey. I serve.
There you go.
And right here, right now, I want to thank you, because you've gotten me out of the past and future. I'm in the now.
Well, you're definitely
I'm not tripping about anything.
Yeah, you're definitely serving here, because, like I said, I'm more than proud to try to share your story with even more people, and hopefully, I have an audience that is different, which is the whole point, right? To try to share an audience.
We're all addicts. We're addicted to visible things.
I did see that post of yours.
Yeah, we're addicted to visible things to fix my invisible problem. Can I share something real quick?
Yeah, please.
What is addiction? What is it? And I have an answer for that. We think about addiction, we think about drugs and alcohol. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or we'll step out there and say gambling or porn or shopping. Shopping's a deadly one. I did a deal with Jay McGarry on Channel 8 about shopping, and that can be real deadly, because you're talking about stealing. People will steal money to keep up with the Joneses. No pun intended. But but here's what addiction is. Addiction is a person. It's a place, thing, and here's the dangerous one, or a thought that becomes my source. Let me say that again. A person, place, thing, or thought that becomes my source. And that's what addiction is. Spiritual stronghold. That's a street slang for spiritual stronghold.
So that being said, too, what about, I've run into a lot of people, and look, I have my own addictions. Everybody has some form or fashion, right? But I have had friends who struggle with something more significant that could be more deadly, a drug addiction or whatever. Yeah. But when they focus on something else, how healthy is it to take someone with an addictive personality and say, all right, I no longer drink or smoke. I've started this new business, and nothing else matters. I'm going to eat, sleep, and whatever.
You're telling my story.
A business or okay.
So that's my story.
It's a way to redirect it, and that's okay as long as you know that it's a healthy redirect.
No, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
No, it's cross addiction.
Okay,
it's cross addiction. Addiction is addiction, and it goes back to how we started. I love this when people call me. There's some people. I had to change my number, but there are people who are drug addicts and alcoholics, and the common denominators are very successful, and they're still successful. And it's like M2. Listen, I got this cocaine problem, but I'm still going to drink. And I said, oh, okay. And they're calling me, and they're just talking. They're ripping and running, talking. And I said, let me stop you for a second. I'm going to ask you a question. There's a right answer. There's one right answer. I said, why do you drink? Well, because my wife's on my back. I'm stressful at work. I said, stop. Wrong answer. Why do you do blow? Why do you do cocaine? Well, dude, man, I want to loosen up, and when I drink, I can drink more, and I get out of the house. And I'm a recreational cocaine user. That's like half pregnant. You know what I mean? Right. I'm like, come on, man. Yeah. People who don't do cocaine don't say I'm a recreational Pepsi drinker. Well, that could be a habit, but you know what I mean? Yeah. But so when they're doing this and they keep going on, and I said, wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. And they get mad and they go, dude, I don't know. Right answer. You just said it. And that's what it is we recognize cross addiction. And I do it today. I recognize the reason why when I cross addict, I'm shifting the view off of God, and I'm going into another visible thing to try to change the way I feel, because I don't want to look at me.
Is there any type of cross addiction that can be productive? And maybe even, may I suggest, what you're doing is it's your outreach, right? Because again, you're focusing your life on seeing outside of yourself, but you can leverage an extraordinary amount of energy into doing that.
Yeah, I mean, being honest that's the best addiction in the world. God can't do anything with the truth, 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
Golly, there's so much. I mean, I want to do a show on this. Is that service work can be an addiction? The church work. We were talking about this last night too. Serving the church. I'm doing everything to serve the church, and what we do is a lot of people stay busy and serve and serve and serve, but they're not looking at themselves. They're not looking at themselves. That can be addiction. We're sinners. You know what I mean? We're punks.
So you have to look at yourself as well.
Every
obviously.
day. Every day. And I am, I can be a fool yesterday. All right. The enemy will wake me up in the morning and says, you're going to be a fool again today. And I got to, Tony Evans said, I read something about Tony Evans today is a huge part of my story. And, I was reading it to my friend this morning and it says, when I wake up in the morning, when my feet hit the ground, Satan goes, oh crap, he's up again. You know what I mean? He's up again. And it's spiritual warfare, bro. I mean, that's what it boils down to. There's not a healthy cross addiction. We can't justify and put lipstick on it,
Interesting.
But I'm addicted every day. I have to just be aware of it.
It's the cognizant factor, as you're aware of it, so you can address it.
Right.
Admit it. Be honest about the fact it's manifest, whatever. Right?
That's right. I'm not addicted to milk. When I drink milk, it doesn't make my life unmanageable, and I become powerless over it. I'm powerless over it. Heck, I've been addicted to Netflix lately. I mean, I'm like binge watching. I can't stop. I mean, it's just like a needle in my arm. I just can't stop. Heck, I'm watching stuff that's not even good. You know what I mean? Well, on a sunny day.
That's how you find the good stuff.
On a sunny day, I was sitting there.
I hear you.
But I'm not going to prison for it. I mean, but overeating, I've never done time with a guy who's like, dude, what are you in for? And he goes, dude, I'm an overeater. Thank God my consequences and my disease have a stigma. Thank God. Because I was able to, I feel sorry for the guy who's worth about $12 million and he's addicted to porn and he's sitting in an office in that dark life.
Yeah.
That's prison.
Yeah. Well, your glass is half full. I think that's very admirable about you. So you have the show. How would people find the show? And are you doing any other projects or anything else?
I am. There's Lee and Kim have got me really involved in some projects. We're working on wrapping up a docu-series that we'll be posting. It's going to be in episodes. We're finishing that. We're working on speaking engagements. To answer your question, just m2therock.com. That's the letter M, the number 2, the rock, ROCK, .com. And we're ready to get out there and get going. And, we're super excited. And, anybody's listening, I don't speak on drugs and alcohol. I share the experience, my experience, strength, and hope, and that we're all addicts. My main passion is men. Our crisis today, Tegan, is the missing man. It's time for men to take back the dinner table, because that's where our world's at today. That's all the way to Ukraine. It's the missing man.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to have you, brother.
Thank you,
and
man.
If there's anything I can do for you, anytime, you have my digits. So I really
love your
appreciate
setup.
Everything that you're doing.
Thank you to your producer and great lighting, great sound. I hope.
Well, you don't know that yet.
I don't know yet, but we'll give it to him. All right,
Johnny's fantastic. Thank you, man.
My man. Good seeing you.
Good to see you too.
Keep on keeping on the golden age caffeine. It's some sidewind you're on. Another situation. See the road from the stripes with the lights coming on. Freedom came upon a catastrophic dream. Another dark page to turn. Another situation. They can't have your heart to find. To pursue once has just another time. And every wish ain't hope till the soul is mine. Keep your muse on loop till your angel cries. A sunlit path you're on, obscure majestic trees. Can't see which way to turn. Just take a new direction. See the road from the side. Your old strides wherever along. Free to think about the way it's supposed to be. It's another dark page to turn. It's another situation.